This is Giordano Bruno. In February of 1600, he was burnt at the stake right where the statue is situated, in Campo de' Fiori, Rome. This statue was established in 1889, 289 years after his public execution. An indirect apology came 400 years later by Pope John Paul II. But why was Bruno executed? After all, he was popular enough that Neil deGrasse Tyson included him in his renewal of the Cosmos series as a champion of science and a renowned skeptic. But this portrayal of Bruno leaves out an important background in and contribution to the esoteric, to the occult philosophy, to religion. If we just look at Bruno through the lens of his cosmological and scientific views, he maintained that the universe was infinite and populated by other planets and solar systems which could harbor life. Now, this by itself was already quite heretical for that time period, but Bruno also rejected the divinity of Christ, the virginity of Mary, transubstantiation, the Trinity itself, most things that the Catholic Church held in quite high esteem. However, when you dive into Bruno's work, you discover that he's doing this for a very specific reason. And that reason isn't to get rid of God, but to make God reflect the infinity of the universe. In other words, for Bruno, if you just traveled through space, you would never meet God or his angels and just find more solar systems. For Bruno, this infinity is the only thing that can actually portray God. God was no longer a detached entity looking down upon us, as if we're some parrot in a cage, as he described some of the theologians of his day. With this move, Bruno not only removed humanity from the center of existence, but he also embedded God into existence itself. A universe with no center has its center everywhere. Even though this idea was heretical enough for Bruno to get burnt at the stake, we'll see how not less than a century later, Spinoza would posit these same ideas and cause a major philosophical breakthrough. Now, there are debates as to whether Giordano was executed for his theological or for his scientific views, but we'll see that in the next episode of this series. So, I'm using Giordano Bruno to launch into a mini-series about the history of religion and the alternate esoteric and occult milieu that is often overlooked. And I want to make it clear that this is no way an attempt to denounce Christianity or to put forward my own or some other person's religious worldview as better than what we have right now. Rather, I want to look at how we received the religious foundations and backgrounds that we hold dear today. And I'm going to try to use the best academic sources that this layperson can get his hands on. We'll even see how some Catholics and Christians contributed to some of the most popular spiritual beliefs we hold today, and how this dichotomy between religion versus science is a very modern idea. No serious discussion about religion, spirituality, the esoteric, and philosophy, in my opinion, can do without the discussion of heresy and things that move away from what is considered mainstream belief and practice. The aim of this series is twofold. First, to satisfy my and your curiosity about a history of a subject that many people just don't even bother to look into. And second, to foster a better way of discussing the subject for more progressive and inclusive results. Now, I want to emphasize that I am not an expert in this subject. I am merely someone who is interested in it. I have been trying to study this stuff through books that I can acquire as a layperson. I cannot do justice to all of this topic. There are people who are much better suited than me, so I will try and leave all the sources I use in the description below. Next in this series, we're going to look at how an English woman who published a book in the 1960s blasted Giordano Bruno in the public imagination. I hope you'll join me, brew up some tea, as we venture into the history of religion, the esoteric, and philosophy. Thank you for watching.